Hello, this video is for Module 2.4 and includes a discussion of the mutate data action. In particular, we'll be doing some recoding and splitting of a string. Okay, let's go ahead and get started then. So the definition of mutate here inside of data science simply indicates that we're going to change the form of an existing field. There are many different ways in which a field can be changed, but we're only going to consider two here. One of the most common mutate actions is the change of a value into another value, and this mutate action is referred to as a recode. Another common action is to split or separate, or for that matter, combine a string to create a new field. We'll talk about that as well in these notes. Okay, let's talk about the recode action then. A recode action is where the value of a field is changed. If the value is put back into the same field, then the recode action is identified as an in-place recode action. Most of the time, though, we put these new values into a new field. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at an example here. We're going to be looking at the immunization rates of children across the 87 counties in Minnesota. The data is provided here in the Google folder. And we're going to do the three following recode actions. So we have maybe I'll open up the data here and just show you what we have. Going to be working with the Minnesota immunization counties data. Let this open here. Okay, so we're going to be looking at column D. And column D contains information about Minnesota, and then it contains information about all the other counties in Minnesota as well. This is for 2015, and then we have data for 2016, and we can see Minnesota there again, and then all the counties listed out for the state of Minnesota. This goes on for additional years down below as well. What I'd like to do with example number 1 is to simply create a new field that identifies whether or not the data is at the state level or not. Okay, so at the state level, I mean, is the location equal to Minnesota? So if the location is Minnesota, I want to recode that to a yes. If the location is anything else, okay, so all the different names of the counties, so if it's not equal to Minnesota, then I want to recode that as no. So taking an existing field and creating a new field based off of these values, that's what we mean by a recode. Here's another example of a recode. Again, I'm going to be working with location. I would like Minnesota to be left blank on this recoding. If it happens to be Hennepin County or Ramsey County, and these are counties in the Twin Cities. Hennepin County is where Minneapolis is at. Ramsey County is where St. Paul is at. So here I'm just identifying those two counties. If they're any other county or any other record, I want it to be labeled as no. And example 3 has to do with a numeric recoding. So here I'm basing this off the population field. So up here and over to the column F there is the population, which is the number of children that are in this particular age group. And this would be at Minnesota here, 104 here in Atkin County. Anoka County is around the Twin Cities, so that number is fairly large. So I want to do a recode on that particular column. And this has to do with our staffing needs. So if the number of children that are 150 and below, that would be a low staffing need. If they're at a 500 and above, that would be a high staffing need. So those are 3 examples of potential recodings that would need to be done. I've created a video and showed you how to do this recoding using a filter inside of a spreadsheet. So if you want to hit pause here and watch that short video, that'll show you how to create a mutate action using filters. Now, we can also do a recode action with a formula. Okay, And we will talk about this one a little bit more because this one is more flexible than the filter approach. We're going to be using a couple of different statements inside of our spreadsheet. And again, it's the same if I'm using Excel or if I'm using Google Sheets. I can use an equal if statement if the spreadsheet, I can use an equal if statement in the spreadsheet to recode, excuse me, when the two fields, all right, let me start over. I can use an equal if function in a spreadsheet to recode when the field to be recoded has two values. So up here, this is an example where it has two values. I can use an equal if statement in example 1. However, I cannot use an equal if statement in example 2 because I have more than two outcomes. I have a blank, I have a yes, and I have a no. I would also not be able to use an equal if statement here because I have three outcomes, low, medium, and high. If I have more than two outcomes, then what I need to do is use the ifs with an S function. And again, these are common functions in both Excel and our Google Sheets. So here is a video that shows you how to apply those types of formulas to these types of recode actions. All right, so I want to talk about these just a little bit, just to give you a different example. So let us suppose that I have just some names here, 4 names. And my goal is to, at least on this first example, identify if the first letter is an E. So I'm going to use the left function to do that. So left, name is the name of the field, and 1 says just pull off the first or leftmost character. I'm going to check to see if that leftmost character is an E. If it is an E, I want to recode it as a yes. Otherwise, I want to record it as a no. So this should be a yes, this should be a yes, this should be a no, this should be a no. First letter, is it an E or not? So this function right here produces this output over here on the right. Again, the left function pulls off the leftmost character. The if statement is checking to see if that's true. If it is true, that's this argument right here. So that goes second. And if it's false, then that's the third argument. Okay. Okay, how about determine if the first letter is an E or a K? So now the recoding should be yes, yes, no, yes. I'm going to use an OR statement now. Okay, so I'm going to check to see if the first letter, I'm going to check to see if the first letter is an E, or I'm going to check to see if the first letter is a K. Okay, so that OR will check both of these for me. If either one of them is true, it's going to return a yes. If none of them are true, then it's going to return a no. So applying this function right here produces this output here, which is what I would like. One quick comment is that if I have 3 or 4 of these conditions here within an OR, that can get kind of messy, especially if I'm using the same condition every time. If I'm using left name 1 and I need to check that on maybe 5 or 6 different letters, this OR statement is going to get really long. A more efficient, or an alternative way that is more efficient, is to just determine if that left name 1 is within a list of letters. And a spreadsheet calls this an array, and an array or list can be just identified with the curly brackets like it is here. This here statement, we would consider that to be more readable than a statement that looks something like this. And as you become more and more comfortable with writing code or using functions like this, we want to worry about how readable our code is. So that's something that we data scientists worry about. Here's another example C here where I'm doing an AND. I'll skip over that one. I want to talk about the ifs condition for a minute here. So now the ifs condition, okay, I'm going to need to use the S version of this if I need to return more than two things. So here we go in example D. If the first letter is an E, okay, I want to return an E. If the last letter is a Y, I want to return a Y. If it's neither one of those, then I want to return no E/Y. Okay, so let's check here. Does this one begin with an E? Yes. So I want my recoded value to be an E here. Does this one begin with an E? Yes. So I want my recoded value here to be an E. Does this one begin with an E? No, it does not. Now what it's going to do is check the second condition, which is the last letter a Y? And it is. So it's going to, the ifs statement is going to return a Y here for Sammy. It's going to go to Kaylee now. Does this one start with an E? It does not. Does this one start with a Y? It does not. So this one, I want to have it return no E or Y. Okay, so here is my first attempt at the ifs statement. I'm going to check whether or not the first letter is an E. If it is, I'm going to return an E. Then what the ifs statement does is it moves on to condition 2. Condition 2 is the furthermost letter, or the right function will do that, is that a Y? If it is, return a Y. Okay, so again, Erica starts with an E, it's going to return an E. Emily starts with an E, it's going to return an E. Sammy's going to does not start with an E, so it's going to go to a Y. And Kaylee does not start with an E, nor does it start with a Y, but this one here is left blank. The reason this one is blank is because the condition is checked, and only if the condition is true does it do something. Okay, so this is action if condition 2 is true, or here it's action if condition 1 is true. In order to do this action right here, this has to be true. And then it keeps moving down the line. Is this a Y? If it is, it's going to return a Y. But the ifs function does not know what to do if a condition is false. Okay, these are all true conditions here. The other thing that I should mention is that the ifs statement works from condition 1, then to condition 2, then to condition 3, down the line. So even though Emily starts with an E and it ends with a Y, this is going to get recoded as an E because it satisfies the first condition. Emily never gets checked with the last letter because the first condition was already satisfied. So how do I get my equal ifs statement to return no EY here if that's never true? Okay. Or maybe I should say if that is never, if this ifs condition never works with a false statement. So what I have to do is actually trick, okay, try to outsmart the equal if statement here. Excuse me. And what I'm going to do is I apologize that that's on two different lines there, but what I'm going to do is just force a condition that is always true. Doesn't matter what it is. And my condition that is always true is 1 times 1 equal to 1. Oh yeah, it is. That's always true. So if I get to this point in my equal ifs statement, it's going to return no e or /y. Okay, so I force something, or I make something up that is always true, and what that's going to do is dump out this last thing whenever this is not true, or whenever this is not true, whenever you could have as many of these as you want. So if you want to use the equal if statement and you want to have a recode action happen when it's false, then you have to force a situation that's true in the equal if statement. Again, the equal ifs only works with true statements. So I got to make up some true statement so that it prints this out in the Cayley situation. Okay, let's talk a little bit about a split then. Okay, so here I want to look at the home healthcare agencies. So that's a different data set with a different folder here. And what I would like to do is pull out the state, okay, that is obtained in the mailing address field. All right, so this video goes through and does that for us, shows you how to do that. Maybe I can show you real quickly what that data looks like. What was it? Healthcare. I think I do a little stuff in the video with the phone number as well. So I start with an easier example there on how I could pull off the area code. And then the other thing, the one that's a little bit more complicated, is to try to figure out how to pull off the state from my mailing address. So I need to figure out a way to get the AL out of here. Or down here later, when I'm looking at some other state, the AR out of there. How do I get the AR out of there? Okay, so again, that video goes through and shows you all of those things. So go ahead and hit pause here and watch that video if you'd like. I do, again, have some examples on just understanding the mutate and split. Inside of a spreadsheet, a split action is actually done using the find and mid functions. There's also a search function that can be used as well. If you want to put information or values together, so kind of the opposite of split, that is called concatenate. That's not covered here in these notes, but that's a fairly simple function that can be used to put values together instead of separating them back out. Okay, a little bit about the find function. The find function is, what would you like to find? That's the first argument. Where do you want me to go find it at? So in which field? And then where do you want me to start my searching? Oftentimes that's 1, but we'll go through an example where it's not. And then the mid function is actually used to retrieve a set of characters within the string, which again, I would need to use that. I'm going to need to do that to pull out the AR here, for example. So what I'm going to do is use the find function to find the commas, and then I'm going to eventually go in and use the mid function to pull out the AR characters, or the state abbreviations. Our more sophisticated software packages, if I were to say split this, that would actually split on all of the commas. Sometimes we call that exploding the string. So this actually would become 4 new, okay, columns if I were to explode that string based on the comma. There's stuff here before the comma, in between the first and second, in between the third and the fourth, and then after the fourth. The state abbreviation would be just the stuff between the second and the third comma there. So again, some of our more sophisticated software packages allow us to do that. In a spreadsheet, I need to use the find and mid functions. Okay, so let's look at some applications of this. Let's just jump down here. What I want to do, what am I doing here? I am trying to find the city in this example. So I have the mailing addresses here of just 5 hospitals. Okay, and I want to pull out the city here. My data processing steps are going to involve, go find the first comma. So I'm going to use equal find. I want to find the comma. Where do you want to go look for it? In this column B, which happens to be named hospital address. And where would you like to start searching? Well, I want to start searching way over here on the left. I want you to start searching from the left and go until you find the first comma. Start here on the left and go until you find the first comma. This is in position 14. The first comma is in position 14. I included just this address here for the Mankato Hospital blown up here in this screen or snippet here. So the first comma here is indeed in position 14. From position 14, I want to go find the next comma. So what I need to do is just push up a little bit, just go up one, and then start searching for the next comma. And that's going to pull up here to this comma. Or down here in Mankato, it's going to land right here. So that's on position 23. So we can see that the first comma is in position 14. The second comma is in position 23. Now, once I know where the first comma is and the second comma, then I can just pull off the appropriate city between those two commas. So I'm going to use the mid function. The first argument for the mid function is what field do you want to work with? That's this one. And then I want you to start in C2 plus 2, which is for this row here, record here, that's going to be starting in position 16. Okay, so that's where I want to start. I need to jump up 2 here because of this space and then to get over under the first letter of the city. And then it takes a little bit of work, but the how many characters is the third argument. And the third argument here is going to be D2 minus C2 minus 2. So D2 is 23. Okay, so that's going to be 23 minus C2, which is 14. 23 minus 14 is 9. And then I need to subtract 2, okay, because of these two characters here. I don't want to include those. Mankato is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is the magical combination of the second comma and the first comma to pull off just the name of the city. If you accidentally pull off something like a blank space before that, actually I'll show you that down below. Okay, what am I doing here? In this next example, I am pulling off the state. Okay, well the state's going to be a little bit easier because I just need to go where the second comma is at, which is at position 24 here. Or maybe I can use the Mankato one again. The second comma was at position 23, right? I just need to go, in order to get the state, I need to go up 1, 2, and then pull 2 characters. Okay, so this one's a little bit easier. I just need to go to the second comma, wherever the second comma is at, go up 2 characters, and then also pull 2 characters. So the jump here is 2, and then that last argument of the mid function is how many characters do you want me to pull? And I just want you to pull 2 because, right, state abbreviation is only 2 letters long. Okay, now if there are inconsistencies in these addresses, that's going to create lots of problems. Here what I've done for the Mankato address is just add an extra space. So there's supposed to be 1 space there between the comma and Minnesota, but I actually put 2 spaces there. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a bigger gap there. Now this is really going to mess me up when I try to figure out how to pull off the state. My function is actually going to pull off the space and then the M, right? Because I'm going to start here, I'm going to go up 2 and then pull 2 characters. Well, the 2 characters are going to be the space and then the M. So that's going to mess me up if this address has an extra space in it like that. Now, that's very common in practice. So what ends up happening when you end up splitting on things like this, you might end up getting some erroneous situations like a space M. We want that to be Minnesota. Okay? There is an alternative using a combination of the right and left. If you want to hit pause here and try to think through that, all right, you're more than welcome to do that. This is kind of a nice, maybe, I don't know if it's easier, but it's maybe more straightforward to use a combination of the right and left in order to pull off the excuse me, that should be state there. That's a typo. New field state is what I'm trying to pull off here. Some final comments. Often there are a variety of ways to accomplish the same mutate action. A mutate action should be robust against anomalies in the data values. Okay, so we want to try to make our functions and our code be able to try to overcome situations like I presented up here. And oftentimes you're going to have to create a sequence of steps. Okay, so there will be several steps oftentimes in order to accomplish what I would like to do with my mutate. The mutate actions can be done in Python, but this section will be added in the future. Okay, here's your task then. I want you to work with the same data, the home healthcare data, okay, that we, data folders up here at the top. It's the same data. And I want you to do a little bit of recoding here. Okay, so there's several different, I think there's 3 different combinations of government and 3 different combinations of voluntary. And the proprietary is the for-profit ones. There's only one of those. But I want you to do a recoding, and then I want you to just get the average patient care star rating for the government, for the proprietary, and then for the voluntary or the nonprofit type organizations. So I've excluded the numbers here because I want you to go figure this out. And then another example is to go ahead and tell me or figure out how to determine whether, well, excuse me, I want you to do a mutate action to create a new field to determine whether or not the home healthcare agency has been certified after 2010. Here's the if statement that you're going to want to use to do that. And then once you do that, I want you to just give me a percentage of the home healthcare agencies in the United States that have been certified after 2010 or maybe before 2010. So what are these percentages? Just provide a screenshot of this table A and provide a screenshot of table B. That's the first 2 elements that I ask you to do in your task. And then on the third one here, what I'd like you to do is talk about how I could use some of these functions. Okay, so the is number would be a new one. Okay, so how would I use the ifs, the is number, the left, or the mid function to pull off the area code when the area code's kind of messy? You don't have to go do this, but just kind of discuss or describe the data processing steps. So say, okay, step 1, this is what I would do in step 1. Step 2, this is what I would do in step 2. And just take as many steps as you want to try to describe that process. Again, you don't have to go implement or do it, but just give me the data processing steps that could be used to pull off the area code from these phone numbers that are kind of messy. Okay, then that does it for Module 2.4 notes with the mutate data action. Thank you.